Hola, International Foods class. Today, I'm going to make some homemade tortillas. And I think while you're at home, you might be able to try this as well. So we're going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're going to add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. There, maybe you can see that better. Next, we add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Here's our baking powder. Don't get it confused with baking soda. It will not turn out the same. So we're going to whisk those dry ingredients together. And next we're going to add shortening. Now, different recipes say you can use vegetable oil. You can use something called lard. I don't know if most of you know that. That is a fat that comes from animals. But we're going to use shortening, which is like Crisco. So we're going to add 3 tablespoons of that to our dry mixture. Hand washing is essential. And yes, I did that very well before I started this. Now I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to start cutting this flour into the shortening, the dry mixture into there, until it looks a little bit like cornmeal. And yes, you can dig in there with your clean hands and work it around until it's like meal. You're making a soft dough out of this. When you've worked the shortening in to where it just looks like cornmeal, you're going to make a well in the middle, which means you're just going to make a dip. And you're going to add 3/4 cup water to this. And you're going to work it in, a little bit of water. Start working it in to make a dough. A little bit more water. Many of the videos show you just using your hands. I just find working with a fork a little bit easier to get it mixed together. So in Mexico, they have a lot of different foods that are common to them. Some of them were introduced and some of them were natural to that area. The most famous thing is probably corn. It's grown there, was introduced to them by history. And corn tortillas are very popular. Today, though, we're having the flour tortillas. And now you want the dough. It will be kind of sticky. We're going to turn it out on this mat. Put a little flour on the mat. And tortillas are a staple that they use. With these simple ingredients, now you're going to form this soft dough. You're going to start working with it. And you're going to knead it. Now, to knead it means to develop that structure in there. You're going to start, it's going to start holding together. And if it's too sticky, you can add a little bit more flour to keep working in there. And we'll work with our dough. Another one of the common ingredients or foods that come from Mexico are tomatoes. They grow in that climate really well. A surprising thing that most people don't know is chocolate is very famous from there. They came up with hot chocolate. Now, you'll see I have a sombrero on. Due to it being very hot down there in the sun, most of the time they wear larger sombreros. But I didn't have one, so I improvised. Many of you know about jalapeno peppers and all the different things. Peppers come from there, and they range anywhere from mild to very hot. Now, our dough is becoming much more manageable. And to knead it, you will push out with the heel of your hands and bring it back over. You push out and bring it over. It's forming into one piece of dough there. Deflour your hands really well. It helps. They don't stick quite as much to it. The dough, the more you work it, the better the dough gets. Beans are another staple brought into Mexico. Refried beans are a very common food. Taco Bell is not a Mexican restaurant. It is an Americanized fast food restaurant, but most of you probably know that. When I went to Mexico, one of the things people always bring back is vanilla. And their vanilla is higher concentrated than our imitation vanillas here. I'll show you two types here in a moment. So right now, I'm working the dough. I need it to get to a soft dough and not quite so sticky. Incorporate a little more flour in it. The flour and the shortening, the flour absorbs the water, and it'll make the tortillas more tender. So the more you knead it, the more you work that structure in there. This is something you could do at home very easily. It just takes flour, salt, baking powder, shortening, and water. If you guys try this at home and you take a picture or video, I would love to see it. If you would email it to me or put it on Classroom, I would love it. So I'm going to let this dough rest for a few minutes in a bowl. I'm going to cover it. Let it rest. Develops that. I'm going to wash my hands off and show you the types of vanilla. One is a dark vanilla like you're used to seeing. Very strong, doesn't need as much. And one is a white vanilla that you really don't see around here very much. Why would we need white as opposed to dark? If you're using vanilla in a white icing or something that you don't want to turn a dark color or affect the color of your icing or your dough, you can use the white vanilla. The place where I visited was called Cancun. It was a resort area. There are many resort areas down there. And then we went out like to the marketplace to do that. So in order to make our tortillas, I have a skillet that I'm going to turn to a pretty high temperature. They recommend you using an iron skillet, but I don't have an iron skillet available today, so I just am using this electric skillet. And our dough has rested somewhat. So I am going to cut this into pieces. This is just a flat turner. Now you can use tortillas. You can bake them and make them crisp and make them into put cinnamon sugar when they're done. Makes a nice little dessert to it. Another common dessert is called fried ice cream. And people are like, what do you mean fried ice cream? Well, you can take ice cream and you roll it in a cornflake and syrup type mixture and let it coat and freeze coat it around the ice cream. Put your ice cream in little muffin tins and freeze it really good. Take it out, put several layers, put it back in the freezer, and then you can actually fry it. And the inside of the ice cream won't melt if you have a good coating on the outside. Okay, so I have made them into little biscuit-looking balls there. So now I'm going to take flour and I'm going to pat them out. I have a rolling pin here that works really well. Now the first ones, they don't always turn out circular. Have to keep working on it a little bit. And I have to make sure that my skillet is heated pretty hot. And I'm going to take the tortilla, put it into the hot skillet. I'm going to let it fry. The skillet needs to be really hot, as in a cast iron skillet will get really hot. So you take the rolling pin again. Go out from the center. The more times you do it, the better you get. Takes me some practice. I don't think I'll be hired to work in any restaurant soon making tortillas. Making things fresh, though, usually tastes so much better than packaged and with things you just have around the house. So once our tortilla starts getting hot, I know it's kind of hard for you to see this, it gets bubbles in the middle of it. Give it a second and I'll show you what the bubbles look like. It gets air pockets in there. You don't bust the air pockets. Well, see the bubbles that form? And once the bubbles form really good on there, you can flip it over. So that's our test tortilla. And now we've got this larger one to go in there in the skillet. Wish I had time-lapse photography and you could see the bubbles form better. So it's Taco Tuesday. I thought that might be a nice way to have tacos for supper. Nice bubbles are forming on this one. It's hard for you to see it. I'm going to wait till the bubbles form really good, turn it over, and put the next one in. I'll show you up close. Oops, don't want that to happen. May not be round, but it's very pliable. And you could put salsa on it or your taco meat and your cheese, or you can make a quesadilla out of it. I encourage you to try this. And this is our Mexican experience in classroom. There is an assignment, there's an explanation, there's a video on Mexico on there. There are some recipes. There's Mexican cookies, wedding cookies you could try. And I do encourage you, if you can, try it, post it for me. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Till next time.